In thinking about this introduction, I am left with a lot more questions than before I started. Like, why did Mobboy go from calling the previous gen the Ticwatch Pro directly to the Ticwatch Pro 3? Do they have some kind of superstitious aversion to the number 2 or something? And why does the new one have such a complicated name, the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS? And while we're at that, is the Ultra meaning that it does everything 10 times better than before? I'm curious to find out about that. And also, did you know I actually made this watch my daily driver now, superseding my longtime Amazfit Verge? Plus, if you already own the first gen, should you need to upgrade? Well, to find out the answers to most of these questions, you're gonna have to watch the rest of this video. This, my friends, is the review of the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS, or this is the box anyway. So let's do it after these messages, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. That way. Here's the Ticwatch, guys, and this 3 Pro Ultra GPS, mouthful of a name device, runs $300 and comes only in this shadow black colorway. And the 3 continues from the previous gen's dual touchscreen display, which in this case is a 1.4-inch always-on AMOLED panel under a secondary LCD screen. And the Gorilla Glass protection that you get here is also hydrophobic and somewhat oleophobic up to a point. Running the show in the background is a Snapdragon 4100 chip. This is not the latest 4100 Plus like you will find in the Fossil Gen 6, but Mobboy has stepped in and added their own companion dual processor that actually runs at a higher frequency than even the Plus and is designed specifically to operate the LCD, the essential mode, web browsing is actually faster here, and the always-on display. There's 1GB of RAM plus 8GB of ROM for which you can upload your own music or download via Spotify, YouTube Music, or other kind of music subscriptions. Now, during my time with it, battery life can hit 2.5 days easy with notifications, haptics, and overnight essential mode turn on, and I'll still have 4% left the next day. Adding a 15-minute GPS track workout per day, though, knocks it down to a more realistic 2.2 days. The 3 Pro weighs 70 grams with the included straps, and it's about 50 millimeters thick from the top of the bezel to the bottom of the sensor array right here. And the reason why I say bezel, the screen is not flush with it. There's a probably 0.5 millimeter lip from the bezel to the screen, so there is some protection for the glass there. It is 48 by 47 millimeters in diameter, so kind of wide for people with more slender wrists. It's okay on mine, but just for comparison, just for fun, I brought along the Coros Vertex 2 right here. We looked at it a couple weeks ago. Look how much bigger this adventure watch is and how much thicker. Granted, this has a bigger battery, way more sensors, but it does give you perspective, doesn't it? Build quality, this thing is solid. I've used this for 3 weeks now. I've rock climbed in it, my hands and wrists. This thing was deep in an engine bay. Not a single lick on the glass or the body, not even on the backing, the back cover right here. It's really well made. And if I remember correctly, it's stainless steel covered by some kind of nylon or carbon fiber. Flipping the watch up, we have the barometric sensor port. Is usually covered by the straps, and on the right side we have the control buttons, and they don't scroll, by the way, and they flank one single microphone on this side, and on the flip side we have the speaker. On the top right here there's a slit that's just a venting port. Now at the bottom we have the charging connectors, and of course the sensor array right here, and in this case we have a heart rate or PPG sensor, temperature, as well as SpO2 sensors, all built-in senders and receivers. And now in this model, in this 3 Pro, we have irregular heart rate detection, guys. So now it can alert you if it senses AFib patterns. So if your heart is too high or too low or irregular, it'll let you know if you're about to die. There's also IP68 water dust resistance, which for a watch is like the equivalent of 5 ATM. Using this 3 Pro is pretty much a very smooth experience, straightforward as you can get, because this is what I call a vanilla Wear OS 2.0 experience. Unlike Samsung that slaps a huge skin on it, Mobboy is very light-handed here. So as Google designed it, it's pretty much where you find everything too here in the Mobboy watches, from the Tic 3 to the previous gen. You know, like swiping down you get settings, swipe up is notifications, swipe left is Google Assistant, swipe right is all the different cards. And by the way, the scrolling experience is pretty smooth, but let me show you this. This is the Ticwatch E3, and it has the 4100 chip but doesn't have the dual processor. It's an LCD screen. Let me go to apps right here, and you can see if I'm scrolling, which is slightly faster. I'm not sure if it's the glass or whatever it is, but it seems like it's a little bit faster and smoother on the E3. I'm not sure why. They have the same amount of ROM and everything, and this is supposed to be the higher end, but you know, maybe it's just me or some kind of placebo effect. In terms of sports, let's go to Ticwatch or Tic Health right here at the top, and it can track 20 different sports, not as high as some other brands, but at least under HIIT you can set up all your 10 different kinds of sub exercises. In terms of vibration or haptics, yeah, I wish it was a little bit stronger as well. It's not the strongest. If it's really a noisy, busy environment, you're not gonna feel it. And like any reason, Ticwatch, and this is cool guys, you can run this device strictly in essential mode, and basically this turns on the LCD screen only to save battery or if you're off grid and you can't charge it. And in this mode, you can still tell time, the date, you can even track steps and even the heart rate if you want to. And if you're wondering, this thing still syncs the info up to GFit and or Tic Health or whatever health app that you might have once you switch it back to normal watch mode. And this time you can also, let me show you this, you can switch the LCD backlight colors, one of the 18 colors. Say if you miss the good old Timex Indigo Blue, you can switch it to that, or if you want red for better night vision, you can do that too. And once you're in essential mode, the battery life, if you just strictly stick to that, can last you around 33 to 35 days based on my calculations. Alright, let's talk about the positives. And in terms of battery life, this is such a good compromise for me, especially after being so used to the 5-day battery life on my daily, the Amazfit Verge. Because like the Samsung Watch 4 and even Ticwatch's Only 3, in their regular modes, they only get 1.5 days. And to me, that's just 2 week sauce, for the very same reasons I mentioned in those reviews. I'll link it up there. So 2 to 2.5 days on this thing really alleviates battery anxiety for me and makes me super less paranoid if I forget to charge it when I go in the shower or something, or if I plan to go on some kind of weekend off-grid camping trip. I know I can get through that and come back home with plenty of juice left. One of the reasons why the previous gen, the Ticwatch Pro, has such a huge fan base, and I guess in a similar vein I can also say the same thing about the Samsung Gear S3, is due in part to the robust design and build that this one has without looking like a G-Shock on steroids or something, or like I'm Flavor Flav wearing a giant clock on my wrist. $299 is definitely not chump change, but for a watch that looks this good and performs this well, it sure does have a good price to capability ratio in my book. And I know some of you saying, well, what about a similar Wear OS 3.0 device? Well, yeah, that's true, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, so hang on to your horses. But I still think for this, for what you get, it's still a great value. The lowly watch strap, and this is often overlooked or quickly passed over in most reviews for obvious reasons, but for me the strap on the Pro 3 is very interesting. And yes, it looks plain and it has some patterning and that's about it, but I care more about the material here because it reminds me of a Seiko diving watch. It's very high quality, but they made this out of FKM rubber and is used in aerospace seals for high temperature, high pressure applications, so you know it's tough and strong. And it's also used in engines and scuba gear, like in the nitrox tanks and hoses and seals and such, so you know this is tough. But not only that, it's very comfortable, very supple at the same time, soft to the touch, and seems to have some kind of good self-healing properties as well. If you get a scratch, you rub it off, it disappears. It's not perfect and definitely not medical grade, but I found the Ultra to be a consistent, reliable performer, especially in terms of health metrics and fitness tracking. And I have to say this too, every manufacturer and even each watch that they make have their own setup, flaws, and idiosyncrasies built in. So while it's important to have or think that you need an accurate watch, I think a reliable watch is just as important, if not more so. Because like say on a 5-mile run, a watch that can measure the same distance over and over again, even though it's like 200 meters off, like this watch is sometimes, if you can do it consistently, heck yeah man, and do the same also for heart rate, altitude, and steps and so on, that's a winner in my book. So breaking it down though, GPS and navigation, they're all good, though sometimes GPS can take about a minute to lock on, and sometimes at the same time it's instantaneous, like it's reading my mind or something. Sleep tracking is also spot on for overnight sleep, but has a harder time for naps. And sometimes it's also things that I'm sleeping even though I'm just lying in bed quietly, like using my phone or something. Small thing, but notifications are way more consistent and immediate on this than on the Samsung Watch 4. I remember that sometimes on the Samsung where I'll get some kind of haptic notification buzz that something came in, I'll check the watch and nothing is there, like a ghost or something. And sometimes there's like a 2-second delay between getting a notification on the phone and then on the watch on the Samsung. never such a problem on the Ticwatch. It would have been so nice if you could have used the crown as some kind of scroll wheel instead of just relying on the touchscreen for scrolling. I guess I've been spoiled by Fossil and Koros among others, and I really hope in this case that they've built it into the hardware already, like some kind of accelerometer into the buttons, and all we need is some kind of firmware update to turn it on. This AMOLED screen, I think, needs to have some kind of auto night mode that the light sensor can trigger. And yes, there's a light sensor in here somewhere, but even at minimum brightness, if I go check on a baby or something, just a quick visit into a dark room, and I don't want to wake someone up, I don't want to turn on theater mode or essential mode each time I do it, and I like the light sensor to be more aggressive in this case. The auto tracking feature for cycling, walking, running is hit or miss, and the most recent example that I can think of was on Halloween when I walked our son around the neighborhood like 5 times, which was around 0.8 kilometers per round. And what did the auto track do? Well, it registered 3 of those times, and in one of those times it was only half the actual distance. So maybe what we need here is a tweak of the algorithm. So Mavori, if you're watching this, let's get this fixed. A few missing things that I really liked in the Samsungs that I wish were in the Ticwatch is, like, say, a shortcut to my apps so I can quickly uninstall them if I need to or control them more granularly, or say a more cohesive health tracking and app experience, because yeah, the Samsungs is not the best, but to me it feels the most cohesive and baked into the watch of the bunch compared to, like, say, the Ticwatch or Fossil. Which brings me to the next negative. This smartwatch really needs Wear OS 3.0 and Fitbit integration. That way we can get rid of all 8 different Ticwatch health apps. Yes, you heard right, there's 8 of them. And Mavor says Wear 3.0 is coming mid-2020, so yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. Back in October, Mavor made this announcement that they were deactivating the compass sensor on this watch due to some kind of compatibility issue or something. And yes, you heard that right, there is no compass on this thing as we speak. So if I remember correctly, doesn't this affect turn-by-turn navigation? And also, what happens if I'm lost in the middle of nowhere and this is low in battery and I just need to use my compass app to find my way home? I guess they'll be bringing me home in a body bag then. Or maybe I should just learn how to look at the sun. I want to recommend this watch so bad, but at this point I would say if you care about Wear OS 3.0, you should definitely wait until next year. But at the same time, if you don't care about what version OS this has, or just as importantly, you don't mind buying it and then waiting for 3.0 to drop, because at this point, it's really a matter of when, not if, you should definitely put this then on your Christmas wish list. It's really that good. It's smooth, it has great battery life for a Wear OS or even an Apple Watch, solid fitness measurements with lots of mod cons like AFib and SpO2 tracking, and it doesn't hurt that it looks more refined and better built than ever before. However, if you do care about 3.0 as we mentioned before, then the only option right now that you have is the Samsung Watch 4, which for the same price as the Pro 3 gets you the LTE version, or if you just want to save 50 bucks, you can get the regular model. So with all that said, I want to give the Ticwatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS a GearUP score of 8.4 out of 10. And I'm quite sure if this had Wear OS 3.0, the score would have been slightly higher. And this is how I broke it down to get the final score. If you have any questions about it, feel free to comment down below. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. And if you found this video interesting and would like to see more from me, please consider subscribing. Don't just watch, show your support and mash the sub and share buttons right now down below here, and also turn on the bell notification icon. You can find me on Insta, and I'm also on Patreon if you like to as well, where you can leave me a tip or buy me a cup of coffee or tea, whichever you like. Remember to thumbs up if you like this video and comment nicely down below as well, super important stuff. And when you're out and about today, please stop and do something kind and loving for somebody, because the world needs it more than ever, and it starts with you. I love y'all very much. This is Aaron signing out. Peace out. God bless. Whoosh.